Please welcome Isabella Socha Suarez.
Good afternoon, everybody. Excuse me, I can't hear you. Good afternoon, everybody. Yeah, that's more like it. Thank you all for being here today. My name is Bella Socha Suarez, and I am the social lead and one of the founding leaders of Terps Demand Action here at the University of Maryland in Prince George's County. It is an immense honor to stand before you as the part of the gun violence prevention movement, a cause that has been close to my heart for over 6 years now. A journey into advocacy began during my freshman year of high school, in the wake of the Parkland shooting, suicides, shooting threats at my high school, and multiple shootings in my community. I grew tired of sitting on the sidelines after every lockdown, or after every hearing about another loss in my community due to firearms. Those events devastated my community and propelled me into action, igniting a passion for change that continues to drive my organization to host events and start a conversation about gun violence on campus. Gun violence is a devastating web that has latched onto every single one of us. All of us are here today either because we've been personally affected by gun violence or know someone who has. Throughout my time in this movement, meeting with students, survivors, and other parents, I've stressed that gun violence prevention is more than just school shootings. It's families who have lost children due to the unsafe storage of firearms. It's friends who are threatened with a firearm in an abusive relationship. It's about veterans and students alike who have taken their own lives with a firearm, unable to find a way out of their pain. It's about the shootings that occur in our communities, in places of worship, and even when people simply walk home. Nowhere is safe. Each incident is a thread in the larger web of gun violence, highlighting the urgent need of prevention efforts and data-driven solutions through policy. Today, we mark the 10th annual Gun Violence Awareness Day. We remember those lost in our communities. We'll never forget their names. We also uplift the voices of survivors, those who have faced unimaginable pain and emerged stronger. This day is a powerful reminder of the resilience and strength that define our movement. Together, we can break the cycle of gun violence and create a world where safety is given, not a privilege, in every community. Students all over the country want to feel safe and not fear that they might go to school and not come home. I fight as a student not because I want to, but because I have to, for the students across the nation and for future generations. Vice President Kamala Harris and our next Senator, Angela Alsobrooks, thank you for your dedication, your passion, and your unwavering commitment to ending gun violence. It's because of leaders like you, working alongside advocates like us, that we have made and will continue to make progress that our country and our communities deserve. That is all.
Please welcome to the stage Tiffany Evans.
Good afternoon, Madam Vice President Harris, County Executive Alsobrooks, and distinguished guests. My name is Tiffany Evans, and I have the proud honor of introducing Angela Alsobrooks to you. I come to know Angela after my life changed on August 24th, 2021 at 8:21 p.m. in Landover, Maryland, when my 8-year-old son, Peyton John Evans, known as PJ, was tragically killed by a stray bullet while sitting at the dinner table eating tacos after football practice. During this challenging time following PJ's death, Angela Alsobrooks has been a steadfast source of support. We first met Angela at Thomas G. Pullen Performing Arts School in September of 2021, welcoming the students on the first day of school. This period was incredibly emotional for me and the students. Angela provided genuine care and support during this time of grief. In memory of Peyton, Angela sponsored over 25 laptops for the third grade students at Thomas G. Pullen Performing Arts School, which would have been PJ's class for the 2021-22 class year. Since then, Angela and I have attended multiple events together where we served on panels discussing youth issues and Prince George's County communities. Her leadership and advocacy are vital not only in Maryland, but across the nation. Currently, as a violence interrupter for Hope in Action in Prince George's County, funded by Angela Alsobrooks, I actively advocate for gun violence prevention. We engage with troubled communities, encourage youth to put those guns down, and Angela is a fighter, and I deeply appreciate that. And working with Angela, I too have realized that I am a fighter as well. We are fighting for our community across the nation. Gun violence knows no color, no demographic, or economic community. It only knows death. Angela has been at the forefront of initiatives aimed at improving public safety education and economic development. A few priorities to note are, she has continued her focus on public safety with a particular emphasis on reducing gun violence, and has launched comprehensive programs to address the root cause of violence, promoting community policy and enhancing the quality of life for her citizens. Her leadership has been instrumental in forming partnerships with local organizations, law enforcement, and community leaders to develop and implement effective gun violence prevention strategies, resulting in notable reduction in violent crimes and an increased community trust and cohesion. Her visionary leadership and commitment to inclusivity have made her a highly respected figure in both local and national circles. With a background in law and a passion for advocacy, Angela Alsobrooks continues to inspire change, uplift lives of countless individuals through her tireless efforts and unwavering dedication to public service. Before becoming county executive, Angela Alsobrooks served as a state attorney for Prince George's County, where she was the first woman and the youngest person to hold this position. In this role, her efforts enhanced the criminal justice system, and her proactive approach to gun violence prevention earned her a widespread recognition and laid a strong foundation for her subsequent accomplishments as a county executive. Angela Alsobrooks is a distinguished leader, and she's a dedicated public servant with a proven track record of transformative impact in her community. Now, can we please all welcome our future U.S. Senator, Angela Alsobrooks.
Hello, Team Maryland. Hello, Maryland. I want to, first of all, say thank you to all of you for being here today, and couldn't go another moment without saying thank you so very much to Tiffany for the living example that she is for every one of us. Tiffany is, in so many ways, one of my heroes. She's a mother, whose child was killed, and every single day she's gotten up and she's had the courage to continue to fight for others. She decided that she's going to literally change the world as a result of her son's death. And I know that I speak for every single person in this room and every person in Maryland and across our country when I say that the pain that Tiffany endured is one that should have never happened. From schoolhouses to places of worship to grocery stores, gun violence is and has become a pain that is way too familiar, a part of our everyday lives. And the tragic fact, one that is so hard for me to even mention, is that gun violence has become the #1 killer of children in the United States of America. It is said that we are judged as a society by how well we care for children. And it is an indictment on us as a society, therefore, that the #1 way that a child dies in America is not by disease or by accident, but by gun violence. And it is true that every single person in this room has an obligation to change that fact and to make sure that we build for all of our children a future that is free of gun violence. It's too easy, we know this is true, to get your hands on a gun these days. Assault weapons are readily available and flood into our state from other locales. The growing presence of ghost guns, we know, exacerbates what is already an unacceptable reality for all of us. And in fact, Maryland overall has now become the place with the highest rate of out-of-state gun imports in the country. Traffickers today bring nearly 3 times as many firearms into Maryland as the national state average. And gun violence is not only a problem in this state, it's impacting lives all across the nation. The United States gun homicide rate is 26 times that of other high-income countries. And we should never, ever become comfortable with this. And it's not just an issue either for inner cities. I want to be clear about that. You know, so often you hear this is something that happens in the inner city. Well, I want to be clear about something. And I want to share with you that it is not just an issue there. It's also hurting rural America as well. The ever-increasing presence and availability of guns in our communities is an epidemic that is making every single one of our neighborhoods vulnerable. And frankly, right now in this country, there are some leaders who believe that we should just accept this reality. And I am so sorry, not in Maryland. That's why I stood up and ran for state's attorney, to help turn the tide of violence that has become, unfortunately, normalized. I don't know about you, but for my daughter, I don't want violence to be normalized. It's nothing that we should ever accept. And so as state's attorney, I led a 50% reduction in violent crime while working to tackle, thank you, the proliferation of guns across our community. And during that time, I advocated strongly for comprehensive gun legislation. I didn't do it alone. There are so many who are in this room today. We have such an excellent legislative delegation who worked on the landmark Firearms Safety Act, which banned most assault weapons, expanded background checks, and required licenses before buying a handgun. Maryland is a leader. And I've continued to stand up against this violence as county executive. We formed a violence prevention task force and implemented their recommendations to interrupt the cycle of violence and to do more to prevent violence before it begins. We've invested in families and worked to create more opportunities for our young people through after-school enrichment programs and internships that lead to great jobs. I've secured grant funding for programs like Hope in Action, Anti-Violence Project that provide community wraparound services, and I'll continue standing against gun violence in the Senate. I'll pass gun legislation, including universal background checks, a ban on military-style assault weapons, and combating illegal firearms trafficking. And as a senator, I'll stand for common sense approaches to make sure that firearms don't end up in the hands of the wrong people who can't pass a background check. And I want you to know as well that I won't back down from holding gun manufacturers accountable and making sure that we, the people, both have and exercise our right to hold this industry to account for the immense harm that they have caused our state and our country. And let me be crystal clear. We will not accomplish these goals to keep Americans safe without a Senate majority. And I want you to know that it has become the case that the path to the majority runs through Maryland. And I couldn't be prouder, because let me tell you that I am a part of a team, Team Maryland. Many of my colleagues are here today. I wish to recognize all of my friends and sisters and brothers in elective service who are here today. Can you stand? There's so many. I want to recognize them who are here today. And also want to recognize the captain of Team Maryland, Governor Wes Moore, who is here as well, and to thank him for his leadership. And I'm looking forward to, I see our delegation is there, Senator Van Hollen, so looking forward to being with you, Congressman Ivey and others. This is an issue that I have dealt with so often as a public servant. But I want you to know that I am here today because I am also a mother who realized that my own daughter and her peers had to make adjustments and learn protocols to be safe in the classroom. When we talk about unacceptable realities, it is an unacceptable reality that we send our kids into schools now and then expect them to practice protocols, how to dive under a desk, how to lock the classroom doors from inside. This is a reality that I do not accept. We have placed the burden of really this scourge that is in our country on the backs of children. And we have done so because the adults lack the courage to do anything about this scourge that is overtaking our country. And so it is through this lens that I attended last year as well as a mother, the viewing of a high school girl. Her name was Jada. Jada was an amazing young woman. She was a person whose bright future was cut short by senseless violence as she tried to keep peace between two groups of fighting students. And I attended her viewing, and as I walked up to her casket, I have to tell you, I swear, I could have screamed. I could have screamed. Asking myself, like so many of us, how did we get here? And knowing, like all of you, that it didn't have to happen. Yet the reality is that it does, and that it happens over and over and over again. And more parents are left to grieve their children. And these are not hypothetical policy debates with imaginary characters. These aren't heartaches that I've had to read about. This is personal for me. This is a pain that I have witnessed up close and personal firsthand, and I have observed it too often. And I know that not enough leaders choose courage and action over sending thoughts and prayers. And too many people choose to opt out of this fight, not understanding that this epidemic will soon reach their doorstep if we don't stand up and do something about it. That's why I've stood up to fight back against this violence and why I'm still standing against it today. And as our leadership grows increasingly farther from the lived experiences of those who've been elected to represent us, it's my mission to keep standing for all of you in the Senate. Because I reject the notion that this path our nation is on is impossible to change. It's not too late for us to give our young people back their childhoods and our families back their safe neighborhoods. But it will take leaders with the courage to stand in order for this to happen. And Tiffany, I want to say this to her, and I want to see where she is in the room. Tiffany, I want you to know I understand, although maybe we can never understand the path that you are on, but I want you to know that you won't walk a single day of this by yourself. I want you to know it. And I want you to know that in the Senate, Tiffany, every time they see me, they're going to also have to see you. But I won't stand alone. The leader that I am about to introduce has always had the courage to stand. You know, years ago when I was initially running for office, I read about a woman, and actually I read about her in Essence magazine. And they were talking about this super incredible leader who had been elected and how she was using these innovative approaches to tackle crime and gun violence. And they were talking about the fact that she had written a book about being smart on crime. And I admired her so much that everywhere I went, I talked about this extraordinary leader and about her innovative leadership. And after I won my election, a couple of days later, I received a call. And she'd called me, and the first thing that she said to me was, "Let me know how I can help." And I want you to know that I have never forgotten that, and neither has she. And you'd better believe I took her up on her offer to help. And she's been helping me all along the way. She showed me the incredible work that she was doing in California to make our community safer. And she never stopped helping and never stopped leading and never stopped fighting and never stopped standing up. You see, that same passion and courage that she's brought to our country, she also has brought to this administration, where she and President Biden have championed and passed the most aggressive gun violence prevention legislation in decades. She's leading the first ever White House Office of Gun Violence Prevention. She is a leader who always has had the courage to stand up for what's right. And it's why we are going to re-elect her and President Biden in November. And I don't think she'd mind me saying that she's one super bad woman. And she's never stopped. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome my friend, the first woman to be elected Vice President of the United States, Vice President Kamala Harris.
Good afternoon, Maryland. Good afternoon to everyone. Good afternoon. I am so proud to stand on this stage in support of Angela Alsobrooks. I cannot tell you how proud I am. And I want to thank her for her leadership and friendship. As Angela said, we've known each other for quite some time, maybe before some people were born. And I will tell you something about her, which I think Marilyn knows. She is a leader with deep conviction and compassion. She is a leader who always stands up for her principles and for the people of Maryland. And she is a fighter for our most fundamental freedoms, including the freedom of a woman to make decisions about her own body and not have her government tell her what she's supposed to do. And when we win majorities in the United States Congress in November, Angela's vote will help President Biden and me restore Roe v. Wade and reproductive freedom for millions of Americans. And as she knows, I was so proud to support her when she was state's attorney and to endorse her when she was county executive. And today, I then proudly endorse Angela Alsobrooks for the United States Senate. And I want to thank all of the other extraordinary leaders who are here today, including, of course, Senator Chris Van Hollen. We were classmates together when I entered the United States Senate. Congressman Glenn Ivey, he and I knew each other back in the day as prosecutors. And, of course, the great Governor Wes Moore. And today, on Gun Violence Awareness Day, a special thank you to all the organizers, the advocates, the leaders who are here, who have fought forever to keep our communities safe. I believe the right to be safe is a civil right. The people of our country have the right to live, work, worship, and learn without fear of violence, including gun violence. And yet, today in America, 1 in 5 people has a family member that was killed by gun violence. 1 in 5. Today, as Angela mentioned, gun violence is the #1 cause of death of the children of America. Think about that. Not a car accident, not cancer, gun violence. Last year, I convened over 15,000 young leaders on my national college tour, and at the stop, every time, I would ask the students, raise your hand if at any point between kindergarten and 12th grade you had to endure an active shooter drill. I'd ask the young people who are here today, raise your hand. I'd ask the older adults in the press to see this. It's bone-chilling to think about what our young people have been going through in terms of the fear that they faced sitting in a classroom. And you know, in fact, I spoke to a younger student years ago, and we were on this subject, and the student said to me, yeah, you know, that's why I don't like going to 5th period. And I said, why, sweetheart? And they said, well, because in that classroom there's no closet to hide in. Over the years, I have met with far too many parents who say a silent and sometimes out loud prayer every time they drop their child off at school or walk them to the school bus stop. And I've held the hands of far too many mothers and fathers to try and comfort them after their child was killed by gun violence, be it a mass shooting or what we call everyday gun violence. So let us all agree, it does not have to be this way. It does not have to be this way. And it is a false choice to suggest that you're either in favor of the Second Amendment or you want to take everyone's guns away. I'm in favor of the Second Amendment, and we need an assault weapons ban. I support the Second Amendment, and we need universal background checks. I support the Second Amendment, and we need red flag laws. In 2020, President Joe Biden and I made a promise that we would finally take on the epidemic of gun violence, and we have. As Vice President, I have the privilege of being with our President when the cameras are on and when the cameras are off, including being with him on a frequent basis in the Oval Office. Well, I'll tell you about the day that we met with Democrats and Republicans to talk about gun safety. And I'll tell you about how Joe Biden sat in his chair in the Oval Office and looked with that bipartisan group of congressional leaders to appeal to their common humanity. And he simply refused to take no for an answer. And it is as a result that I am proud to report we passed the first major gun safety law in over 30 years. And we have then finally strengthened background checks. Because here's what was happening. So before we took office, gun stores were required by law to conduct background checks. But gun dealers who sold weapons outside of the traditional gun store, like at a gun show or a flea market or even online, did not conduct background checks. We used to call this the gun show loophole. It had been around so long that back in the olden days, in 2007, when I was the elected district attorney of San Francisco, I actually organized a rally in opposition to the gun show loophole. And now, as Vice President, I am proud that we have finally closed it. We also have finally taken on the problem of domestic abusers having access to guns. Since taking office, our administration put a stop to the nearly 30,000 gun sales to convicted domestic abusers. And as I have worked my entire career to protect women and children from domestic violence, Angela Alsobrooks has long been a leader on this issue as well. She was the first assistant state's attorney in Prince George's County to specialize in domestic violence cases, right? So to be here to support her today is to know she will be an experienced leader on this issue when she is in the United States Senate, and that matters. I also lead the first ever, as you have heard, White House Office on Gun Violence Prevention, and through that office, we have made an historic investment to address the trauma of gun violence. In particular, the trauma associated with everyday gun violence, the often undiagnosed and untreated trauma. We have now invested $1 billion to hire mental health counselors in public schools across our country. It's the single largest investment in student mental health in our nation's history. So, Maryland, the fight that we are in to end the horror of gun violence presents one point that is clear about this November, that the choice in November is clear. Whereas President Biden and I stood up to the NRA and the gun lobby, Donald Trump bowed down. After the horrors of El Paso and Dayton, the former president said he would take action. And then he folded. He failed to stand up to the gun lobby. He opposed reasonable gun safety reforms, and he cut funding to gun violence prevention. You know, Donald Trump often likes to say violent crime is up under our administration, while in fact, violent crime is now near a 50-year low. Meanwhile, in part because of his failure to act on gun violence during President Trump's term, America saw the largest increase in the murder rate in modern history. Know that. And a second Trump term would be even worse. If he were to win in November, you can bet that he will repeal our bipartisan gun safety law, reopen gun show loopholes, and veto any new gun safety laws. Recall, on gun violence, Donald Trump offered a clear message for the people of America. And I quote, remember when he said this, I am quoting now. He said, "Get over it." He said, "Get over it." So in this election, you have an opportunity then, Maryland, to send Donald Trump a message back. Maryland, this November, you have the power to elect leaders who have actually kept our communities safe. You have the power to send Angela Alsobrooks to the United States Senate and help us win back the House as well. And with your voice and your vote, you have the power to re-elect President Biden and me to the White House. So, Maryland, are you ready to make your voices heard? Are you ready to fight for an assault weapons ban? Are you ready to fight for universal background checks and red flag laws? And are you ready to fight for your freedom to be safe from gun violence? And when we fight, we win. May God bless you, and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you all very much. Thank you.